My name is Violet Archer. I'm 32 years old, and I run an AI tech company based in Portland, Oregon. Everything I have now, I built from scratch. No secret inheritance, no safety net, and definitely no emotional support from my family. The story I'm about to share started 6 months ago, last Christmas. But to understand how we got there, you need to know the years that came before, the slow burn of being the wrong child. Growing up, my younger brother Ryan was the pride of the Archer family. He's 4 years younger than me. Since we were kids, he was the one everyone bragged about. The athlete, the charming one, the one with the so-called real future. Right now, Ryan works as a sales manager in Seattle, making around $80,000 a year. It's a solid salary for someone who's 28. Our parents talk about it like he single-handedly holds up the American economy. And me? In their eyes, I was always just the daughter who hid behind a laptop. I still remember the day that dynamic became painfully clear. I was 15. Ryan had just been chosen as starting forward on his school's soccer team. That night, the dinner table was practically a press conference dedicated to his promising sports career. "That boy of mine is going places," my dad said, grinning so wide his eyes almost disappeared. "Scholarship for sure. You'll see." I had just come home with a certificate for winning first place in a statewide programming competition. I put it next to my plate, waiting for someone to ask. My mom glanced at it, said, "That's nice, honey," and then turned back to asking Ryan about his training schedule. That was it. "That's nice." Years later, Ryan got a full-ride soccer scholarship to the University of Texas. Our house turned into Celebration Central, relatives dropping by, banners in the living room, speeches at dinner. I got into the computer science program at the University of Portland with a partial scholarship. No one bothered to print my acceptance letter. My mom just said, "Good, at least you won't be too far if you fail and need to come home." It sounds harsh now, but when you hear that kind of thing often enough, it stops sounding unusual. It just becomes normal. After college, Ryan got a job at a big bank in Dallas as a junior analyst. It sounded impressive when my parents said it. "Our son works in banking," my father would announce to the neighbors. "He has a bright future." As for me, I did something unforgivable in their eyes. I didn't get an office job. I started a company. I saved up $5,000 from part-time gigs and bought an old laptop that sounded like a helicopter every time I ran code. I rented a tiny office for $200 a month and practically lived there. 16-hour days, falling asleep on an air mattress between lines of code and investor rejections. Through all of that, I never once called home to ask for money. Not because I was proud, but because I knew exactly what they'd say. "We told you this startup nonsense was a waste of time. Why can't you just do something stable like Ryan?" "You're not a kid anymore, Violet. Stop chasing fantasies." Then, 4 years ago, Ryan sent our parents $1,000 so they could buy a new TV. My dad called me within minutes, his voice full of pride I had never once heard directed at me. "Ryan just sent us $1,000, he said. "He wanted us to have a nice TV to watch games on." My mom jumped in, twisting the knife without even realizing it. "Why can't you be thoughtful like your brother, Violet? He's younger than you and still knows how to care for family." In that moment, desperate for even a crumb of recognition, I said something that would cost me more than I realized. I told her, "Next time you need anything, Mom, just tell me. If I can help, I will." That one sentence opened the door. At first, it was small things every couple of months. "The fridge broke. Can I borrow $400? We need new tires. Can you send $300? I would send the money immediately, telling myself, maybe this is how they'll finally see that I'm not a failure. Then, 3 years ago, my dad had a work accident that left him unable to keep a full-time job. My mom sent a long message about bills, medical costs, how his partial pension and her part-time work weren't enough. I didn't even hesitate. I set up a recurring transfer, $12,200 every month. For 3 years straight, I sent that money. 36 months, over $43,000, and still I was the disappointment. Which brings us back to last Christmas. It was a week before the holiday. I was in my office at the company, reviewing documents for our upcoming Seattle expansion. The place was buzzing. Developers arguing about code, marketing, laughing about some meme, the smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. It was chaotic, but it was mine. My phone lit up on the desk. "Dad." My stomach tightened automatically. Calls from my family rarely brought anything good. I forced a smile into my voice as I picked up. "Hey, Dad. I was just about to call you about Christmas plans." He sighed. Heavy. The kind of sigh that tells you this conversation is already loaded. I heard the TV in the background, my mom talking to someone. Then he said, almost casually, "Violet, if possible, maybe don't come home this year." At first, I thought he was trying to be considerate, that maybe for once he was thinking about my workload. End of year chaos, quarter end reports, investor updates. "It's okay, Dad," I said quickly. "I can make it work. Family is more important than work. I'll come early and help Mom like always." There was a long silence. I could hear the faint clink of dishes, some game show on TV. Then his tone changed, flatter, heavier. "Ryan is bringing his girlfriend home," he said. "Jessica. She's a manager at a big company in Seattle, very successful, well respected." He paused. I could picture him sitting in his recliner, staring at some spot on the wall. "Ryan really cares about her," he added. I waited, not sure why my heart felt like it was bracing for impact. Then he cleared his throat and said the rest. "If you're there, Violet, it'll just embarrass him. What will she think of our family if she sees that Ryan's older sister is just some woman who sits in front of a computer with no real future?" For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. The words were too cruel, too sharp. "Are you serious, Dad?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my best effort. There was no hesitation, no softness. "Honestly, you shouldn't come. Ryan is trying to make a good impression on Jessica and her family. Your presence would only bring shame to all of us." Then he hung up. No goodbye, no, we'll talk later. Just a hard click and silence. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my ear, staring at nothing. Outside my office door, my employees were laughing about something in the break room. Someone rolled their chair across the floor. The printer whirred to life. Inside my chest, everything went quiet. On the drive home, I moved through the city like a programmed machine. Red light, stop. Green light, go. Turn left, turn right, park. I didn't feel the steering wheel in my hands. I didn't feel my legs moving. I just existed. It wasn't until I closed my apartment door behind me that the silence turned heavy. I stood there in the dim hallway light, Dad's sentence echoing in my head on a loop. "Your presence would only bring shame to the family." I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat on the couch. The first sip tasted like nothing. The second burned. For a few minutes, or maybe an hour, I replayed every moment I had tried to make them proud. The nights sleeping on the office floor. The first time my company hit $1 million in revenue. The day I signed the lease on our new office and stood in the empty space, imagining desks and whiteboards and people who believed in what we were building. I had told my parents about those milestones once. Just once. My mom laughed it off. "That's nice, honey. But is it stable? You know how these little tech things are? They disappear overnight." My dad said, "As long as you can pay your own rent, do whatever you want." I stopped sharing after that. Sitting alone on my couch with a half-warm beer in my hand, something inside me finally cracked. Not into pieces, but into clarity. They didn't see me, not really. They saw an ATM with Wi-Fi. If my presence was such an embarrassment, maybe my money should stop showing up too. I picked up my phones again, opened in my banking app, and scrolled to the automatic payments section. The line was right there, $1,200. Archer, Daniel, and Linda, recurring, first of every month. My finger hovered over the cancel button. A small pop-up appeared. "Are you sure you wanted to cancel this recurring payment?" For the first time in years, I didn't hesitate for them. I chose me. I tapped yes. The confirmation screen appeared. It was strangely quiet. No fireworks, no triumphant music. Just a small, unemotional notice. "Your automatic payment has been canceled." I locked my phone and set it on the coffee table. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't announce anything. I knew they'd notice on January 1st. A week later, on Christmas Day, I could have stayed home and cried. Instead, I signed up to volunteer at a local soup kitchen. From 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., I stood behind a metal counter, handing plates of hot food to strangers who said, "Thank you," like they really meant it. A man with tired eyes told me, "You have a kind face. You know that?" A teenage girl whispered, "This is the only real meal I've had all week." No one knew who I was. No one cared that I ran a company. No one asked how much money I made. For the first time in a long time, I felt human, useful, seen. That night, back home with a mug of hot chocolate, I mindlessly scrolled through social media. And there it was, a photo posted by my cousin Miguel. The entire Archer clan gathered around the Christmas table. My parents in the center, smiling like their lives were perfect. Aunts and uncles crammed around them, glasses raised. In the corner of the photo, I saw Ryan with his arm around Jessica. She looked polished, confident. They looked happy. The caption read, Best Christmas ever. So great meeting Jessica. She's perfect for Ryan. I zoomed in, looking for any sign that someone had noticed I wasn't there. An empty chair. A gap at the table. A shadow where I should have been. Nothing. No one looked sad. No one looked like they missed me. The family was complete without me, as if I had never existed. I set my phone down and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. In that moment, I knew I'd made the right decision, not just canceling the money, but quietly stepping out of the role I was never meant to play. If to them, I was nothing more than an embarrassing daughter with a fake-sounding computer job, then they could enjoy their perfect Christmas without me. And for the first time in years, on that cold Portland night, I felt a strange, fragile peace settle over me. I hadn't abandoned my family. I had simply stopped paying for the privilege of being despised. And that was only the first move. January 2nd, 9:12 a.m. That's when the first message came in. Mom, Violet, sweetheart, can you check again? It's the 2nd, and I still haven't received the money this month. Maybe the bank made a mistake? Love you. I stared at the text for a full minute. Not how are you? Not where did you spend Christmas? Just where's the money? The coffee in my hand had gone lukewarm, but I kept sipping it anyway. It tasted like cardboard. I set my phone face down on the counter and tried to get on with my morning. Shower, jeans, sweater, makeup, hair in a low bun, CEO armor. But the whole time, that text sat in the back of my mind, buzzing like a faint alarm. By the time I slid into my car to head to the office, my phone vibrated again. Then again. Then again. I glanced at the screen. Dad. 3 missed calls. New voicemail from Dad. I debated ignoring it. Then I put the car in park, leaned my head back against the seat, and hit play on the voicemail. Violet, his voice snapped through the speaker, sharper than usual. Why didn't you send the money? What's going on? Call me back now. No, please, no concern, just a command. Something in me went from hurt to tired, bone-deep tired. I opened a new text thread with both of them, Mom and Dad. For once, I didn't overthink my words. I didn't rehearse or soften or apologize. I typed one sentence. I canceled the automatic payment. My thumb hovered over the send button for 2 seconds. Then I pressed it. No explanation, no essay, just the truth. I locked my phone, tossed it into the passenger seat, and pulled out of the driveway. At the office, it was business as usual. Meetings, code reviews, a call with our potential investor in San Francisco. I slipped into my role so smoothly, you'd never guess my parents had just found out their personal ATM was closed. It wasn't until lunch that I checked my phone again. 45 missed calls from Dad, 12 from Mom, a scrolling list of messages. Dad, answer your phone. Dad, this isn't funny, Violet. Mom, sweetie, what's wrong? Did we do something? Dad, you think you can just decide this without talking to us? Mom, your father is very upset. Please don't be like this. Dad, after everything we've done for you. Dad, you're really going to abandon us like this? That word, abandon. As if I hadn't spent 3 years sending money, they never even thanked me for properly. As if the last 32 years of being ignored, dismissed, and talked over meant nothing. I clicked my phone screen off before I could spiral. I didn't reply. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about playing games. I just didn't have any explanations left in me they were willing to hear. The next day, the calls slowed down but didn't stop. Mid-afternoon, during a product roadmap meeting, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in a while. Aunt Carol, my mom's older sister, the one who used to slip me extra dessert at family gatherings and whisper, "Don't let them get to you, kiddo." The same aunt who slowly drifted to my parents' side of every story as the years went by. I let it ring out the first time. She called again, and again. On the 4th time, I stepped out of the conference room, walked down the hallway to the quiet end near the stairwell, and answered. Hi, Aunt Carol, I said cautiously. Her voice was cold. I'd never heard it like that with me. Violet, what on earth are you doing? There it was. No hello, no check-in, just straight into accusation. I'm at work, I said slowly. Is everything okay? Don't play dumb with me, she snapped. You didn't come home for Christmas, and now your parents tell me you've stopped sending them money. Is this true? The fluorescent lights hummed loudly above me. For a moment, I thought I might actually laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was all so predictable. It's true, I said. I canceled the payments. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Then her voice dropped into that disappointed tone adults use when they want to cut you without raising their volume. Violet, I'm honestly shocked. Your parents raised you, gave you everything they could, and now that they're struggling, you turn your back on them. For what? Pride? Heat shot up the back of my neck. I pressed my palm against the wall to steady myself. Aunt Carol, there's a lot you don't. Don't interrupt me, she said firmly. Your mother came to my house yesterday in tears. She said she doesn't understand how her own daughter can be so ungrateful. Ungrateful. There it was again. My hand curled into a fist against the cool paint. What exactly did she tell you? I asked quietly. She told me, Aunt Carol said, her voice growing heavier, that you refused to come home because you were jealous of Ryan's girlfriend, that you can't stand how well he's doing now. She said you only ever sent them $200 a month, and even that you suddenly stopped once you heard about Jessica. 200. I choked out a bitter little sound that wasn't quite a laugh. 200? I repeated. Yes, she snapped. And even if it was only 200, it was still something you promised. Do you realize what kind of position you've put them in? I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to break free. All those sleepless nights building my company, all those transfers I scheduled on the first of every month, even when cash flow was tight. The times I skipped upgrades, vacations, and little luxuries because I knew that money was going straight to my parents' account. And now, in the story they told the world, I was the jealous, stingy daughter who couldn't even manage $200 without resenting it. Aunt Carol, I said, my voice shaking, I think we should talk in person. I don't see what... Please, I cut in, more firmly than I'd ever spoken to her. Give me 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I'll drive over now. There was a long pause. I imagined her weighing her loyalty to my mother against the niece she hadn't really known in years. 10 minutes, she finally said. That's it. She gave me her address. I already knew the way. The drive to her suburb near Dallas took 45 minutes. 45 minutes of me rehearsing what I'd say, then scrapping it, then starting over. By the time I rang her doorbell, my hands were damp. When she opened the door, her expression was hard. The warm, gently sarcastic aunt I remembered was gone. This woman's eyes were sharp, defensive. Violet, she said stiffly. Hi, Aunt Carol. I tried to smile. It didn't really land. She stepped aside just enough to let me in. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and something baking, banana bread maybe. It looked the same as when I was a kid, except for the tension wrapped around everything like plastic. She didn't invite me to sit, but I sat anyway, on the edge of the couch. You said 10 minutes, she reminded me, crossing her arms. Okay, I nodded. Then I'll get straight to it. I pulled out my phone, hands steadier now that I had something concrete to hold on to. First, I said, I want to show you why I didn't come home for Christmas. I opened the message from my dad, the one from a week before the holiday. The screen lit up with his words. Remember what I said? Don't come home. Don't embarrass me. I handed her the phone. She took it with a skeptical frown, then slowly read the line. Her eyes moved back and forth a few times, as if checking whether she'd misunderstood something. Her lips parted slightly. He really wrote this? She murmured. Yes, I replied, after he told me on the phone that my presence would bring shame to the family in front of Ryan and Jessica. She didn't respond. She just stared at the phone, her face changing shape in small, uneasy ways. Now, I said softly, I want to show you something else. I tapped out of the message and opened my banking app. My thumb moved through the menus automatically. I'd done this view dozens of times just to check everything was going out on schedule. Transactions, transfers, search, Archer, Daniel, and Linda. A long list appeared, line after line. $10,000, $100, $1,000, $1,200. 36 times. At the top, total, $43,200 held in dollars. I handed her the phone again. For a few seconds, she didn't seem to understand what she was looking at. Then her brows furrowed deeper, and she scrolled. And scrolled. And scrolled. Every first of the month, I said quietly. For the past 3 years. $1,200. Not $200. Not once in a while. Every month. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dragged her thumb up and down the screen. You've been sending this much, she whispered, for this long? Yes. I watched the color drain from her face as the numbers settled into place in her mind. And, I added, my voice a little rough, I never asked them for anything. Not a thank you gift, not recognition. I just wanted them to see that I could take care of them too, that I wasn't the failure they believed I was. Aunt Carol sank onto the armchair across from me, still holding my phone like it might burn her. That's not what your mother told me, she said slowly. What did she tell you? I asked. She looked up at me. shame flickering in her eyes. She said you were jealous of Ryan, that you refused to come home for Christmas because you couldn't stand to be around him and Jessica. She told me you only sent $200 a month and stopped that once you heard about Jessica's job. She said, her voice trailed off, fragile. She said you turned your back on them because you couldn't handle your brother being more successful than you. My chest tightened. So to her, I said quietly, I'm a bitter, jealous daughter who barely helped and then stormed off. Aunt Carol closed her eyes for a moment. I was harsh with you on the phone, she admitted, because if that story were true, I would have been right to be disappointed. I swallowed hard, fighting down the stupid instinct to apologize for upsetting her. There's more, I said, but the short version is, when I finally tried to set one boundary, the only thing they cared about was the money. Not my hurt, not the years of being compared to Ryan, just the missing deposit. For the next 30 minutes, I talked. I told her about the phone call where Dad said my presence would bring shame in front of Jessica, about the Christmas photo with everyone smiling like I'd never existed, about the 45 missed calls that had nothing to do with my well-being and everything to do with their bank account. Aunt Carol listened, really listened. No interruptions, no excuses. Just a woman watching the story she thought she knew crumble in front of her. When I finished, there was a long, heavy silence. Then she stood, still holding my phone. Violet, she said, her voice thicker now, I owe you a sincere apology. I misjudged you. I believed your mother because, well, I've always believed her. She's my little sister. I nodded, my throat tight. I understand, I said. No, she replied firmly. Understanding doesn't erase what I said to you. I called you ungrateful. I said things I had no right to say. I'm sorry. A part of me wanted to break down right there, to cry into the fabric of her couch like I was 15 again. Instead, I just sat a little straighter. Thank you, I whispered. She looked down at my phone again, at the list of transfers. May I take screenshots of these? She asked. And of that message from your father? My eyes widened a little. What for? She drew in a long breath and exhaled slowly, like she was making a decision that hurt and healed at the same time. I'm going to send them to the rest of the family, she said. To your uncles, your cousins, everyone. Your parents have spun their version of events for years. They've painted you as ungrateful, selfish, unstable. It's time people see the truth about who's actually been taking care of them. The idea made my stomach flip. Aunt Carol, I don't want a war, I said quickly. I don't want them humiliated. I just didn't want to be lied about anymore. This isn't about humiliation, she replied, her voice steady. This is about honesty. For years, your parents have benefited from your silence. They used your money while complaining about your existence. They poisoned other people against you while cashing your transfers. That ends now. I didn't have an answer, so I just nodded. She took the screenshots carefully, like she was handling evidence in a trial, which, in a way, she was. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Violet, she said softly. Yes? Whatever your parents say after this, I want you to remember something. She looked me straight in the eye. You are not ungrateful. You are not abandoning them. You are just refusing to be used. The words hit something raw inside me. Thank you, Aunt Carol, I managed. As I drove back to Portland that evening, the sky was a dull gray, the kind that makes the world look washed out. But somewhere beneath the exhaustion and sadness, I felt the tiniest flicker of relief. For the first time in my life, someone in my family had seen the full picture, not the edited version my parents liked to circulate. The truth. The next morning, around 10 a.m., my phone started lighting up like a Christmas tree. Cousins, uncles, numbers I hadn't seen in years. I didn't answer any of them, not one. At 3 p.m., Aunt Carol's name popped up. This time I picked up. Hi, I said quietly. I just wanted to tell you something, she said. Her tone was different now. No judgment, just weary clarity. Everyone on both sides of the family has seen everything. The messages, the transfers, the dates. No one is defending your parents anymore. I didn't say anything. I just leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. People were finally seeing what I'd been living with for years. Most of them are disappointed, she went on. They're going to keep some distance from your parents for a while. They feel manipulated, betrayed. Hearing that hurt more than I expected. I'd never wished for my parents to be isolated. I just wanted them to stop using me as a prop and a wallet. As for you, Aunt Carol continued, a little softer, I think it's time people know who you are. Not through your parents' stories, but through the truth. You're not the failure they said you were. You never were. I swallowed hard. My eyes burned. Thank you, I whispered. There was a pause. Then she said something I never thought I'd hear from her. I'm sorry, Violet, truly sorry. I should have asked you for your side a long time ago. After we hung up, I sat there in my office, surrounded by whiteboards full of product plans and sticky notes about new features. I had spent years trying to earn my parents' approval with money and achievements. Now, for the first time, I had something better than their fragile, conditional praise. I had proof. I had distance. And I had one more thing I never expected to find in the middle of all this chaos. A small, steady sense of dignity. I didn't know it then, but 3 months later, that dignity would be tested in a way I could never have imagined. Because that's when my younger brother Ryan would walk into my company and apply for a job. 3 months passed. 3 months of quiet mornings, clean boundaries, and a peace so unfamiliar it felt like wearing someone else's coat. Too big, too soft, too strange. But slowly I began to grow into it. My company, once a shaky startup surviving on caffeine and stubbornness, was suddenly thriving. Our Q1 revenue had jumped 40% over last year. We opened our Seattle branch, hired 25 new employees. Investors were calling us for meetings, not the other way around. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. I didn't hear from my parents, not directly, not after the family group chat saw the truth. My phone was silent in the ways that matter. Painful, yes, but clean. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, the past slammed back into my life with the subtlety of a falling brick. Linda, our head of HR, knocked on my office door. Got a minute? She asked, stepping in with a folder tucked under her arm. Sure, I said, sliding my laptop aside. What's up? We've narrowed down the candidates for the Seattle sales manager position. I wanted you to look at the top 10 before we finalize interviews. I nodded. This was standard. I no longer handled interviews directly, but for key positions, especially those involving new branches, I like to be involved. She handed me the folder. I flipped it open. Candidate 1, Candidate 2, Candidate 3. Then my fingers froze. Candidate 4, Ryan Archer. My breath caught. For a second, I stared at the name like it was a glitch in the system. A misprint. A cosmic joke. Linda noticed my stillness. Everything okay? I swallowed. This candidate, does he know I run the company? No, she said immediately. He applied through our website. Standard procedure. We don't disclose executive leadership names until the final interview. Of course he didn't know. In my parents' version of reality, I was someone who played with computers, not someone who built a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I breathed in slowly, gathering myself, then closed the folder. I'll handle this interview personally, I said. Linda blinked. You will? I rarely got involved past the screening stage. My involvement meant something unusual was happening. Still, she nodded. Understood. I'll schedule him for Tuesday at 2 o'clock. As she left the room, I sat back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Ryan, here, in my company. And he had no idea. Tuesday, 2 p.m. The conference room was glass-walled and bright, with a long table, a monitor mounted on the wall, and the Seattle skyline printed on the far mural. Linda sat near the middle, tablet in hand. Jake, a senior team lead who'd be overseeing the new branch, sat beside her. I stood near the window, gathering my composure. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened. Ryan walked in wearing a navy suit. He looked confident, too confident, with that polished smile he'd always been able to turn on like a switch. Hello, he said warmly, shaking Linda's hand. Ryan Archer, thank you for having me. Of course, Linda replied professionally. We appreciate your interest. He shook Jake's hand next. Great to meet you. Then he took a seat. I waited until he settled in. Then I stepped forward. The moment our eyes met, everything in his expression shattered, like watching ice crack under sudden heat. His smile faltered, his posture stiffened. His pupils widened. Violet? He breathed. Linda glanced between us, confused. I offered a calm, neutral nod. Hello, Ryan. Before we begin, Linda, could you introduce me formally? Linda cleared her throat. Certainly. Ryan, this is Violet Archer, the founder and CEO of Aetherist Technologies. Ryan went pale. I didn't know, he stuttered. I had no idea you're the founder? His voice trailed off into a whisper. Ignoring the personal undercurrents, I pulled out my chair and sat across from him. Let's begin the interview, I said. The interview lasted 45 excruciating minutes. Linda started with standard questions. Ryan, can you walk us through your experience overseeing sales targets at your previous company? He stumbled immediately. Well, yes, I worked with some of that. I helped with reporting. sometimes. Jake asked about customer retention strategies. I think we used Salesforce or something like that. We did, Jake pressed. How did you utilize the CRM to increase retention rates? Ryan blinked. Well, I didn't personally handle the rates, I just supported the team. Linda then asked, your resume states you were a senior sales manager. Can you elaborate on your responsibilities at that level? He shifted in his seat. I wasn't exactly senior, but everyone called me that because I had experience. Jake raised a brow. Your listed metrics show a 35% year-over-year growth under your management. Can you walk us through how you achieved that? Well, those numbers were part of a group effort, he sputtered. I contributed to discussions. It became painfully clear that he had inflated his title. He exaggerated his experience. He didn't understand basic sales metrics. He wasn't remotely prepared for a managerial role. And all of it unraveled in front of me, Linda and Jake, slowly, painfully, undeniably. Finally, I leaned forward. Ryan, I said evenly, as per our company policy, we have strict guidelines regarding hiring relatives of employees or leadership. The bar must be higher, not lower. Do you understand what that means? He swallowed, trying to maintain dignity. Yes, I understand. If hired, I continued, your work would be under greater scrutiny, not less. You would have to demonstrate clear qualifications that exceed other candidates. Do you feel confident that your experience meets that standard? His eyes flicked down, his voice cracked. I'm not sure. It wasn't a question for him, but he finally answered it anyway. When the interview ended, Linda said, thank you for your time, Ryan. We'll be in touch within a week. He nodded weakly and walked out. The moment the door closed behind him, the silence was thick. Jake spoke first, blunt as always. He's not qualified, not even close. Linda nodded. Agreed. Experience doesn't match the resume. His responses were inconsistent. I looked between them, gave a small nod, and said the words that sealed it. The decision is clear. We will reject the application. Linda made a mark on her tablet. I'll send him a formal notice within 48 hours. Good, I said softly. But inside, my chest ached. Not out of regret, but out of the realization that my brother had walked into my company expecting a shortcut. And I would not, give him one. 2 days later, the rejection email went out. And that night, while I was watching a show on Netflix, my phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. Missed calls from Dad. Missed calls from Mom. Missed calls from Ryan. Followed by messages. Mom, how could you embarrass your brother like that? Dad, explain yourself. Now. Ryan, Violet, please. I really needed that job. Why would you do this? I read each one carefully. Then I deleted them all. No explanations, no apologies, no arguments. Just silence. Because sometimes silence is the first real boundary you ever set, and I had a feeling the storm was only beginning. The storm didn't wait long. By the next morning, my phone was vibrating so constantly it felt like a live wire on my desk. 15 missed calls from my mother, 9 from my father, a handful from Ryan, even a voice message from a number I didn't recognize, likely another relative ready to lecture me. I ignored them all. Around noon, I was in a leadership meeting discussing product integration timelines when there was a soft knock at the glass door. Linda slipped inside, her expression measured but tense. Sorry to interrupt, she said quietly, but I just received a call from someone who identified himself as your father. A few of the managers glanced up at me. Linda continued, he demanded to know why his son was rejected and insisted on setting a meeting with you. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice even. How did you respond? I told him, she said professionally, that hiring decisions are confidential and made strictly based on qualifications, and that we do not discuss applicants with anyone outside the organization, including family members. Perfect, I nodded. And if he calls again? Same response, she said, every time. I exhaled. Thank you, Linda. She gave me a small, sympathetic smile before slipping back out. I turned to my team. All right, where were we? And the meeting continued. But all I could think was, they're not going to let this go. That evening, I sent one final message to my parents and brother. A single group text. Hiring decisions at Aetheris are based on professional qualifications, not family ties. Ryan did not meet the job requirements. This decision is final. Then I blocked all 3 of their numbers. It felt like closing a door, not slamming it, just gently, firmly shutting it. But I should have known they wouldn't respect the lock. Friday, 7:46 p.m. I'd just pulled into my apartment parking garage after a long day when I saw 2 figures standing near the entrance to my building. My heart sank. My parents. They were dressed like they'd come straight from a serious conversation at someone's house. My father in a stiff button-down, my mother clutching her purse with both hands like it was life support. They saw me before I could even consider driving away. My mother raised her hand weakly. My father squared his shoulders. I stepped out of my car with a controlled breath, locked it behind me, and walked toward them. "Violet," my mother said, her voice tremoring slightly, "we need to talk." I didn't want to do this outside where neighbors could hear, or worse, record. So I said, "Fine, come inside." I unlocked my door, let them in, and gestured toward the living room. The glasses of water I set out stayed untouched. My father spoke first, voice tight with poorly concealed anger. "Violet, we need to discuss what you did to Ryan." I didn't sit yet. I needed them to start. "What about it?" My mother leaned forward, her tone desperate and soft, her favorite combination for emotional manipulation. "Ryan is hurting. He was counting on that job. You know how competitive the market is." "I'm aware," I said. She wrung her hands. "Then why did you have to embarrass him like that?" My father cut in louder. "You humiliated him in front of your employees, your own brother." I finally sat down across from them. "He wasn't qualified for the role." My father scoffed. "Qualifications," he repeated. "He's your brother. That's all that should matter." That single line crystallized everything wrong with my family dynamic. "Dad," I said evenly, "I have a responsibility to over 150 employees and to my investors. I cannot hire someone who isn't qualified just because he shares my last name." "You run the company," he snapped. "You can hire whoever you want." I shook my head. "We have a board of directors. Hiring policies exist for a reason." My mother softened her voice again. "Just bend the rules," she whispered. "Just this once, for family." I stared at her. For years, bending myself into knots for this family had been an expectation, not a request. "Mom," I said gently but firmly, "I can't break company policy. Not for anyone." My father's face darkened. "You think you're too good for your own family now," he said coldly. "Ever since that damn company took off, you act like you don't owe us anything." "I don't owe you a job for Ryan," I said. "Then we'll handle this ourselves," he snapped. My mother's voice dropped into a chilling monotone. "You think money and success replace family. You've forgotten everything we sacrificed for you." Sacrifices? The word almost made me laugh. Bitterly. Instead, I inhaled deeply. "I'm not discussing this further." My father stood abruptly. "If you don't fix this, Violet, we will come to your office and tell your employees what kind of person you really are." The air snapped like an electric wire. That was not disappointment. That was a threat. The kind that crossed a line I could never unlay. I stood up calmly, without raising my voice, without dramatics. "I'm asking you both to leave," I said. "Violet," my mother started. "Now," I said. They didn't move. So I walked past them, into my bedroom, picked up my phone, dialed 3 numbers, and said clearly, "Hello, I need police assistance. 2 individuals are refusing to leave my private residence after being asked multiple times." I gave the dispatcher my address. When I returned to the living room, my parents stared at me as if I'd grown horns. "You called the police on your parents?" my mother whispered, horrified. "Yes," I said simply. "Please wait outside." They didn't move until the police arrived 10 minutes later. 2 officers stepped in, calm, professional, neutral. I explained. My parents denied. The officers listened. Then one officer said, "This appears to be a civil matter. Sir, ma'am, you will need to leave the premises. If you continue contacting your daughter in this manner, she may file for a restraining order." My mother gasped. "A restraining order? Against her own family?" My father glared at me. "You'll regret this, Violet." My mother sobbed into her hands. "You've killed this family." But they walked out. Not by choice, by necessity. The second the door closed behind them, I felt the quiet echo through the apartment like a hollowed-out space inside my chest. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I just breathed. The next week, I filed for an official restraining order with the district court. I submitted screenshots of their threats, proof of harassment, the police incident number, statements describing emotional coercion. The judge granted it the same day. My parents were legally barred from contacting me or approaching my workplace. And for the first time, the boundaries I'd spent my whole life afraid to set became real. Not emotional, not symbolic, legal. It was the most painful decision I'd ever made. But it was also the first decision I made entirely for myself. And strangely, it felt like the beginning of something new. Something I didn't yet have words for. 6 months have passed since that night. The night the police escorted my parents out of my home. The night I finally realized it wasn't my job to set myself on fire to keep my family warm. 6 months. Half a year sounds short, but when you've spent your whole life being the emotional punching bag, the financial safety net, the invisible sibling who was only noticed when it was convenient, it's long enough to become someone else. Someone stable, someone whole, someone free. We passed 180 employees. Seattle branch, thriving. California expansion, in early development. Investor confidence, higher than ever. In meetings, people listened to me, not because I demanded it, but because I finally carried myself like a woman who belonged in the room. No shrinking, no second guessing, no sorry before stating my opinion. The absence of my family didn't create a void. It created space. Space for leaders who respected me. Space for a team that trusted me. Space for my own voice. And as my company grew, so did I. I met someone. His name is Ethan Rivers, a graphic designer we collaborated with on a branding project. Soft-spoken, thoughtful, the kind of man who sees details most people overlook. One afternoon, we finished reviewing logo revisions, and as we were walking to the parking lot, he hesitated before asking, "So, is it true what I heard from your team? You built this whole company from scratch?" I almost shrugged it off. Old habits die hard. But instead I said, "Yes, I did." His reaction wasn't awe, it wasn't intimidation, it wasn't judgment. It was respect. "Then I'd really like to hear the whole story someday," he said, "if you ever want to share it." No pressure, no assumptions, just genuine curiosity. And slowly we got to know each other. He didn't flinch when I told him about my parents. He didn't pity me. He didn't say, "Family is everything," like so many people do when they've never known the kind of family that can break you without lifting a finger. He just said, "Your story makes sense. You're strong because you had to be." Ethan became a quiet, steady presence in my life. Someone who understood boundaries, someone who didn't need saving, someone who didn't treat relationships like a scoreboard. A month after we started dating, he met me outside my office with hot chocolate and said, "You're not alone anymore, Violet. Not in anything, not ever again, unless you want to be." And for the first time, I believed him. He ended up finding a job at a smaller company in Austin, a job he earned on his own. No shortcuts, no favoritism, no sister to fall back on. And honestly, that was the best possible thing that could have happened to him. For the first time, Ryan had to face the world without our parents cushioning him. Maybe he'll grow from it, maybe he won't. But it's not my responsibility anymore. I don't know. And that answer used to terrify me. Now it brings me peace. The restraining order is still in effect. They can't call, can't show up at my home or workplace, and they haven't tried to reach me through extended family since the truth came out. Last I heard through my aunt, they've become quieter at gatherings, more withdrawn. Not out of guilt. She doubts they'll ever admit wrongdoing, but out of embarrassment. When your lies fall apart in front of the entire family, there's not much left to hide behind. But that, too, is no longer my burden. But here's what they leave out. Blood that's healthy doesn't poison you. Family that loves you doesn't weaponize your loyalty. Parents who care don't shame you into obedience. Love without respect is not love. Obligation without affection is not family, and boundaries are not betrayal. For years, I thought walking away made me ungrateful. Now I know the truth. Walking away was the most loving thing I've ever done for myself. A volunteer mentorship program for young entrepreneurs from toxic or unsupportive families. Every week, I meet people who remind me of myself. Kids who were told their dreams were stupid. Adults still trying to break free from guilt. Talented people who never felt good enough at home. Survivors of emotional neglect disguised as parenting. I tell them the truth. I wish someone had told me 10 years ago, "You don't owe anyone access to your life at the expense of your mental health. You are allowed to succeed without apologizing for it. You are allowed to set boundaries even if it hurts people who expected unconditional access to you. And most importantly, you are allowed to build a family out of the people who choose you, not the people who expect you to choose them." Was I wrong for filing a restraining order against my parents? People who refused to leave my home, threatened my career, and used my success only when it benefited them? Was I wrong for refusing to hire my brother when he wasn't qualified, when giving him the job would have sabotaged everything I built? Was I wrong for choosing myself for the first time in my life? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to hear what you would have done. And if you've ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they kept hurting you, know this. You're not alone. You're not wrong. And you don't need to feel ashamed for protecting the life you fought to build. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and the courage it takes to break cycles that were never yours to carry. Thank you for listening.